Well, welcome everyone. I am Chris Waala, and this is the lovely Keri Seiler. In case you missed our lunch and learn from last week, we're going to review some of the slides that we had from there and offer you an electronic version of this. Typically, our third person of our staff is Steve. He is our manual expert. He's like Rain Man. He usually walks around with his wagon full of manuals.
So we'll see Steve a little bit later in the question and answer section. However, we just wanted to go ahead and run through some topics of concern that our clients have had recently. So we hope you enjoyed the presentation.
We've been getting a lot of questions regarding service line coverage on a typical homeowner's policy. Service lines are underground service lines consisting of exterior pipes and wiring that provide services to a home such as electrical, heating, gas, water, and waste. Under a typical homeowner's policies, once it leaves the building itself or the foundation, it is not covered under a typical homeowner's policy. So a lot more carriers are offering an endorsement to that policy where we can cover it once it leaves the foundation and then heads out into the street where it connects to municipality offerings. So service line issues where there's a damage to it from freezing, corrosion, tree roots, rodents, and insects, for example, can be pretty costly, tens of thousands of dollars sometimes, and on a worst case scenario. You can purchase this service line coverage endorsement. Typically, some carriers are offering it about $15 annually, all the way up to maybe about $35 annually. And you can buy that in increments of like 10,000 max or 15,000 max. And for that premium, it's pretty economical to have that kind of peace of mind for this coverage. So I think it's well worth it. Well, welcome to the question and answer portion of the presentation. We're going to be asked a few questions from Steve and also Nick. And many of you don't know Nick, but you probably talked to him on the phone when you called the agency. Nick's going to be helping us out in a client service role, and you'll be hearing a lot from him if you do call in and ask for one of us.
Under service line coverage, are my septic lines covered?
Septic lines are typically covered out to the filter bed or septic system. Once it hits the system, then that is excluded, and that would be the portion of the homeowner's responsibility.
The next topic we're going to cover is riots and vandalism. We have all witnessed civil unrest in the last few months. Riots in cities like Kenosha and Madison started in the commercial district, but then began to affect residential homes and areas. We have had several clients who have called concerned if the activity spreads, are they covered? I'm going to go into the standard homeowners insurance. Standard homeowners insurance policies will cover damage to the property caused by fire, an explosion, a riot or civil commotion, vandalism, or malicious mischief. This would include coverage to the structure of the home as well as personal possessions. There is also coverage afforded under the auto insurance portion of your policies. The damage to vehicles, whether business vehicles or personal, that result from a riot, civil commotion, vandalism, fire, falling objects, and other unforeseen risks is covered under the optional comprehensive portion of the auto insurance policy. So to be clear, if you have liability coverage only on your vehicle, the physical damage would not be covered in a riot situation. This would be for a full coverage vehicle only. Physical damage is most often covered completely under the homeowner's policy when we're talking about graffiti or outdoor lighting and cameras. Windows, arson, glued locks is one of those perils I just recently was aware of. So when we're talking about a physical, damage to your property, that's where a deductible is going to apply. So liability in regards to defense of your home is a bit more complicated. Most home insurance policies exclude acts of intentional harm, with an exception in regards to bodily injury resulting from the use of reasonable force to protect persons or property. So as you can see, the line is not only gray, but it's blurred, in the interpretation. So the best thing to do would be to purchase a gun liability policy through an outside company, such as like Delta Defense, USCCA. They all offer, it's mainly the liability coverage there, and the coverage you're looking for is the legal defense. A judge is going to decide where the responsibility lies in a home invasion type of situation where you would have to defend your home. So when we're talking about, guns and things like that, I know the Kenosha residents were, sitting in their kitchens with their children in the basement. So, in a situation like that, you never know what's going to happen next. So it would be a good peace of mind, just to know where you stand on your homeowner's policy and where you may need to purchase a little extra. So you can always give us a call. We are happy to help walk you through what you would need, in situations where riots and vandalism are concerned.
Round 2, the rodent and insect infestation. Rodent infestations can cause all sorts of destructions in your house, from messy droppings to structural damage and more. Unlike your auto policy, rodent damage and removal aren't covered by most homeowners' insurance policies. Since infestation and damage that result from rats and mice are usually considered matters of home maintenance, the responsibility is typically the homeowners to pay for repairs and pest control methods. It's in your best interest, if you suspect any kind of infestation in your house, to call a pest control company as soon as possible. They're professionals. They'll come out and do an awesome job for you in the least amount of time possible. Along those lines too, if you had any issues with an auto policy, assuming the auto has full coverage, meaning physical damage and liability coverage, the rodent and insect infestation would probably fall under the comprehensive coverage. If you do have questions regarding these coverages or any other ones, please give us a call and we can review your policy with you to make sure that you have all your questions answered.
So the next question has to do with a car that is in storage. Now the question is, if a rogue mouse or chipmunk were to get into this car that's in storage and chew up the wires, would that be covered?
Yes, it would be covered, assuming the vehicle had full coverage. Damage to the vehicle from a rodent would be covered under the comprehensive deductible, and that would be settled on a actual cash value basis. Unlike the homeowners, if you had a rodent issue in your homeowner's insurance policy, that would not be covered.
Going off of that question, now what if I had a squirrel chew through my garage overhang and gets into the garage and does some damage or makes a nest in the garage? Would that be covered?
As we had discussed in the previous slide, if they do chew in and get into the home, it would be an excluded loss. That would be the responsibility of the homeowners to prevent that rodent from getting in and also to repair the damage. That is an excluded loss on a standard homeowner's policy.
The next topic we have here is, am I covered if my pet bites someone? The liability portion of a homeowner's policy will cover a dog bite. However, the company will generally only cover the first incident in which an animal causes injury. Many homeowners' policies include language that excludes any subsequent claims related to dog bites or other animal-related injuries. So there's also certain insurance companies that refuse to cover specific breeds of dogs, such as pit bulls or Rottweilers, Doberman Pinschers. Just as a rule of thumb, under the liability portion of your policy, you're covered for a dog bite, but usually only once. And that liability would cover legal fees if you happen to end up in court. It would also cover injuries to the other animal, medical bills, or, again, legal bills that you may incur based off of your dog's behavior. There are specialty insurance companies that provide insurance for pet owners of a repeat offender. Pet owners often have no choice but to look for coverage from an insurance company that specializes in animal coverage. We mentioned before, standard homeowners policies will exclude coverage related to a dog, or they will cancel a home policy as long as the dog still resides with the owner. So these specialty companies will, basically cover the dog for liability while you're able to maintain your homeowner's policy. So we also want to draw your attention to the pictures. So here we've got two dogs playing, and we've got a dog looking at a butterfly, which both situations you think would be harmless, but this pulls us to the prevention aspect of the topic here. So you see the two dogs playing. Well, dogs, can easily get out of hand, and, the instinct would be to step in the middle of the two of them and try to stop the behavior. We never, ever want our homeowners or anyone to try to get in the middle of that, just because dogs then it's an escalated situation, and then dogs tend to, not only they're aggravated, but they also will try to defend their owner if you step in the middle of that. And we have seen some pretty serious injuries coming from those types of situations. Also, you look at the dog here on the slide who is just looking at a butterfly, and you think, well, heck, what a harmless butterfly, what harm could that do? But a dog could be easily startled by that situation. So it's just a couple of examples of, where you think the dog's man's best friend, but we always need to remember that a dog is an animal and we need to respect them as such. Some warning signs of a dog that is uneasy or, could potentially bite would be if the dog's ears are pulled back. It has a drooped tail, and it's kind of got that tail in between its legs. Or fur standing up on the back of, on its back and on its tail. The eyes are like extremely wide open. You can see the whites. Or a dog could be just hanging out behind you. They call that stalking, actually. So if the dog's really quiet and behind you, just pay extra attention. They're not calling attention to themselves for a reason. Another just sidebar here, there are a lot of people that are confused as far as, dogs defending their property. So there are many dog walkers in the city who, they walk their dogs down the street, and, of course, dogs are going to sniff other people's yards and use it for the bathroom and all that. And dog walkers sometimes don't understand that when you allow your dog to walk on someone else's property, you're actually trespassing. And that can lead to dog fights. You think about it. A dog is territorial. So if the dog is outside and you happen to be walking by with your dog and your dog is on that lawn, that could easily cause a fight. And you would be in the wrong in the situation if you let your dog on someone else's property. So just, be aware, that, and many owners, pet owners, use an invisible fence on their private property. So you may not even know that dog's going to stop right at that sidewalk. So just a few special notes there on how to prevent dog bites, but also that your homeowner's policy will cover it, but usually it's a one and done kind of thing.
Keri touched on firearms a bit in a previous segment, and we're going to cover that in a little more in detail here. We get some questions from our clients regarding, are my firearms covered in my homeowner's policy? Guns are covered under your homeowner's policy like any other personal property for loss, theft, and damage. A standard homeowner's policy typically provides about $2,500 in coverage for loss, damage, and stolen firearms. That's typically included under homeowner's policy. If you have some firearms that exceed that, you can schedule those firearms for additional premium. Typically, we would need serial numbers for that and values to schedule it. And again, there would be an additional cost per $100 in value. If you have something that's really exotic, you might need additional documentation like an appraisal from a gunsmith or items like that. One of the most widespread myths about self-defense coverage is that your homeowner's policy will protect you after you use your firearm for self-defense. By law, none of these policies can provide immediate assistance for an attorney retainer, bond money, lost wages, criminal defense fees, or any other potentially devastating expenses. Like Keri had mentioned before, we typically recommend that a gun owner purchases a liability membership like USCCA. out of West Bend from Delta Defense. There are other companies that do carry a membership-based liability insurance policy for gun owners, and you can research those online to find the best one that fits for you.
The next question is to do with my firearms. Now, would it be better to have those scheduled or just covered under my blanket limit?
Well, typically with a homeowner's policy, there's a set dollar amount included for firearms. Usually that's $2,500. If you have a collection of firearms that exceeds that limit, it probably is in your best interest to schedule those firearms. And we would need some documentation to schedule those items. One would be serial numbers, make and model of everything, along with the values. And then we could schedule that to the policy. Premium is usually per $100 worth of value, depending on what the rate is for firearms on that. But there will be an additional charge to it. So definitely if you have firearms that are over that $2,500 value, it's probably in your best interest to schedule those.
So another topic that we have recently been asked about is what's the difference between replacement cost and guaranteed replacement cost coverage on my homeowner's policy for my dwelling. So do you ever wonder where we get the number for your dwelling amount from? We actually compile a report that tells us, based on square footage, year built, building materials, fun stuff like fireplaces, granite countertops, what your home would cost should it burn down and we need to replace it, and also afford coverage for, debris cleanup, fire department service charge, all that fun stuff. So let's look at the definitions of replacement cost versus guaranteed replacement cost. So with replacement cost coverage, your insurance company will pay to repair or replace damaged portions of your home without considering depreciation. However, the replacement cost is subject to a maximum amount. For example, if your home's estimated replacement cost is $250,000 and you experience a total loss, having to rebuild from the ground up, your insurance company will pay to rebuild your house up to $250,000. Guaranteed replacement cost is just that. It's guaranteed. Rebuilding is not capped at the total amount of replacement cost. It continues to go until the home is completed. Now, this, of course, is provided that you follow the recommendation of the insurance company, which is that number that your agent came up with from the report. So I'd like to draw your attention to the picture of the house without the roof. So that's typically the best example that we can give that replacement cost would cover. So let's say that you've got $250,000 in coverage and that takes you to the roof. That's a great visual of what is missing. So you would be responsible for the remaining portion to rebuild the roof with replacement cost coverage. So with guaranteed replacement cost, the company just says, you know what, you agreed to follow our recommendation. We're just going to keep on building until your house is rebuilt completely. Usually guaranteed replacement cost is just an additional little endorsement you can add to your policy. I want to say $20, $25 most carriers are offering that for.
If my roof is 15 years old, would it still be covered under replacement cost?
I'll take that one. So in that situation, it all depends on the type of coverage that you've elected when you took your policy out. There's replacement cost options available, but most policies offer actual cash value included in the base policy.
More and more of our clients are becoming condo unit owners, or they live in a homeowners association. So the question that comes up quite a bit lately is, what is loss assessment coverage? Loss assessment coverage is an optional endorsement that you can add onto your homeowner's insurance or condo insurance policy. It helps to protect you if you live in a shared community like a condo or a homeowners association, when you're responsible for a portion of damage or loss in a common area. If you receive a special assessment resulting from an insurance claim that wasn't fully paid by your condo association's master policy, loss assessment coverage can help you. As an example, weather damaged and outside of a shared building. Your condo association has a $500,000 coverage limit on your building structure. If a fire or windstorm causes $550,000 in damage, your association insurance pays up to the coverage limit, and that leaves a shortage of $50,000 repair bill. That is the responsibility of the unit owners in the association. If there are 50 unit owners in the association, each owner would be charged the $1,000 towards the $50,000 shortage that exceeded the association's coverage limit. In most of these condo policies, a $5,000 loss assessment is automatically included with the policy. More and more unit owners are requesting higher loss assessment limits, and it's very economical to add additional dollars to that limit. Typically around $5 per $5,000 in loss assessment increased coverage. More and more carriers are offering a higher limit of loss assessment up into the $50,000 range. So if you find yourself in this situation where you're a condo unit owner or part of a homeowners association and you're interested in taking a look at your loss assessment limits or increasing them, please give us a call and we can go through it with you. Make sure that you have the proper coverage for it. It's really not that much more additional premium.
If I was a member of a condo association, let's say it's a 3-unit condo, would something damaged outside in a common area be covered by the condo association or by the unit owners?
Okay, so the condo association would offer coverage under their policy for all common areas, or depending on your contract, exterior walls and that sort of thing. So usually a condo association's policy is going to have a higher deductible than a standard homeowner's policy, sometimes to the tune of $50,000. So in that event, each unit owner would have to come up with their portion of the deductible. So it is a good thing to ask to see that insurance policy of the association. And if you get a chance to discuss the policy, with the other members, that may be a good thing to reconsider if that deductible is a little too high, like $50,000. So another subject that has come up recently in conversations with clients is, how are family gravestones and monuments covered? Well, a homeowner's policy actually affords coverage for this. Usually built into the policy is anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500 that is just included, and that is pretty much with most standard carriers. It's just a little bell and whistle that they like to throw in there for you. So a lot of times graves can be either vandalized or weather can damage them. And they can get pretty expensive. So, a lot of times a church, in a 1-2 type of isolated incident, they usually just cover it for you and take care of the damages. They are, though, notably not obligated to do this. This is a goodwill gesture to you. Broad scale damage, such as a tornado or straight line winds, usually leave such a large amount of damage that the cemetery or the church they can no longer offer the goodwill gesture of taking care of the damages. So then that would fall back on the homeowners. In a situation where it is the gravestone of great-great-grandmother Martha, the closest living relative can choose to make that claim against their homeowner policy, or whoever in the family. There's no real set scale to that. You can just file away, or whoever just really wants to make sure that that's covered can add that to their policy. Again, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and give us a call. As always, there's no obligation to move. We just want to help you out and make sure that you have the best coverage available, and make sure that your financial picture is whole and sound. The last thing we want to do is for you to invest money or have assets and then lose those things just because there's a gap in coverage somewhere.
If my parents' gravestones are vandalized, would they be covered, as it's not something that is owned by anybody?
Great question. So a family headstone or monument would be covered under a homeowner's policy up to about $1,500. you can purchase more. And the question then remains, who's the one to make the claim? And that can just be an agreed upon family member. So whoever wants to take responsibility of that within the family, you're more than welcome to file a claim against your homeowner's policy. A lot of people think that the cemetery or the church are the responsible parties in the event that there's damage, and that is not true. So if a cemetery or church does cover damage to your gravestone or monument, that is a courtesy to you. It is not a requirement. Well, we hope you've enjoyed our little presentation. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call. You can ask for Chris, Steve, or myself. We'll be happy to help you. Merry Christmas and have a wonderful New Year if we don't talk to you sooner.